great way to learn about career. You need to get career advice and find openings, and so this is something that I wrote in an ACS publication some years ago. People like to talk about themselves. So when you're networking, you don't want to ask people for jobs. You want to ask for career advice, right? So so the informational interviews can help you decide which jobs and companies best suit you, and to identify contacts, call corporate headquarters and say, I'm a student looking for career advice. Can you give me contact information for the person in the lab? People will usually be happy to answer a few questions. So some suggestions are to so you can share a brief overview of your strengths and interests, not usually your resume. So I'll explain. The resume is used for applying for specific jobs. So you can ask them the sorts of jobs that you are suited for, find out what they look for when they're hiring, what advice they have for you. You can ask if they know of any openings, and always ask if they recommend others whom you could interview or who could give you advice, and then thank them. So that's a good way to network and expand your network, and also find out about potential openings. So resume and curriculum vitae. So the purpose of the resume, especially the resume, they're marketing documents, and their purpose is to get you an interview. Once you have an interview for a job, the resume or the CV has done its job. So normally the resume is required for industry applications, and curriculum vitae for academic. The CV format is standard, and it's as long as necessary. The resume is normally 2 pages, and the format can vary. The resume should be customized for each individual job application, although you will probably need a generic resume for maybe posting on a website, for example. And the resume should focus on transferable skills and specific and quantifiable achievements, and I'll illustrate those. But just you see things on the internet about people asking for career advice, and they say, I've applied for hundreds of jobs and I never hear back. The problem is that when you send out 100 generic resumes, so just the last time I hired a chemist here, I had 111 applications. Okay, the applications that stood out and were considered for interviews are the ones that were not just like all the others. They were the ones who had actually taken the time to customize their resume to the job ad for what we were looking for. So I'm just going to throw up a couple of sample resumes. So this is a format that's more suitable for students and new graduates. So you have your contact information at the top. So then you have education, qualifications, selected achievements. Again, there's various formats, but just earlier in your career, you're going to want to have your education first. Okay, and then my work experience. You can certainly put your volunteer experience in there as well. I'm not going to dwell more on this, just to show one format that I used earlier in my career. So this is a recent resume, and I want to spend a little bit more time just giving you an idea here. So first of all, put your LinkedIn profile information at the top. At least in Canada and the United States, you don't normally include a photograph with an application, although I recognize that practices are different in some other areas in the world. So at the top, I have in bold what's branding, right? So the thing is, when you apply for a job, right, I said I had 111 people, and what is it that's going to make you stand out among those 111 people to be one of the, say 3 people that gets an interview? Okay, so most of those people are going to be technically qualified. So, so if you take a look at what I've got in bold at the top, that's a brief summary of how I present myself, how I think of myself, and how I can add unique value to an employer. And then underneath that, I've got then a little bit more. I've expanded that, but this is who I am, and this is what helps me to bring value to people, and it differentiates me from those other, however many other people are applying for the same job. Okay, so those are things which are unique to me, and it's sort of my unique value proposition that I bring to an employer in addition to my technical skills. So then I have just an overall summary of sort of big picture things. So this is a particular resume. So some of the things I've selected for qualifications and achievements are not necessarily the same on each resume that I would use to apply for jobs. Okay, so they're customized for a specific job that I was applying for. And then I just want to highlight a couple of selected achievements. So it's good to be able to say things that don't just say what you did, say what you accomplished. Be as specific and quantifiable as possible. So, for example, several of you are volunteers in your ACS student chapter. So, if you are the treasurer, for example, you can say that you managed the student chapter budget and give the figure. Or you increased revenues by 10%, increased membership by 10%. You organized talks such as this, at which however many people participated. Okay, so those are things which will help, whether not just in business, but even in academia. If you're applying for research grants, you need to be able to demonstrate the potential impact of the research that you want to do. And so it's good to have those specific quantifiable achievements. If you are a teaching assistant and you have teaching evaluations, early in my career, I had outstanding teaching evaluations. I gave, I think, a 92.5% overall satisfaction rating, and I even quoted one or two of the nicest things that students said about me as their teaching assistant. So these are all specific quantifiable achievements that you can put. Now, as I go down, then I've listed some of the jobs that I do. So include your volunteer experience in there, especially early in your career. And then I've put my education near the back because I'm later in my career. It's less relevant. And then I have my professional memberships there. So if you go on the ACS Careers website, there are other resume formats. You can find them online as well. But again, keep in mind it's a targeted marketing document to help you get an interview. So cover letters. Sometimes when you are applying for a job, you may have to apply on a company website, and they may or may not give you an opportunity to submit a cover letter. If you have the opportunity, I always recommend that you put a cover letter in. Because when I'm looking through those 111 applications that I had, people that wrote a cover letter and people that wrote a good cover letter helps their applications to get to the top of the pile for who's being considered for an interview. So a cover letter, it's one page. So you should state the purpose. So you're applying for a specific job, where you saw the ad, as well as the attachments if you are sending it by email. Say what attachments you're sending. So your cover letter addresses their qualifications, how you meet their qualifications, and the cover letter should reinforce and further illustrate your resume. So it doesn't repeat the resume, but it's an opportunity for you to give a broader picture of what's in your resume. And it's also a chance for you to display your knowledge of the company and the position and what they're looking for. I always recommend that you go to their company or organization website and take a look at what it is, what their values are, what the company's mission is, and then you can state how that relates, how you relate to that. So and helps you to be able to say why you are what they are looking for and what you can bring to them and what you can do for them. So always your focus needs to be on what their needs are as stated in their job description, but also on their website. Okay, most people who are applying, most of those 111 people I had did not bother to do that. But a couple were able to go on and say, I identify with, this value of Glencore, or I would really enjoy working at Glencore because. So with the last resume I put up, so here's the cover letter that I said for the application. So so it was for a lab manager at the Royal Canadian Mint, and so a couple of things. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but I mentioned people. Okay, so the application was brought to my attention by Mike Hines, and he was a senior chemist at the Mint at the time. Okay, and I mentioned my connection to Mike Hines. So I talk about my relationship to analysis and experience with analysis of precious metals. Okay, the last sentence in the first paragraph is in French because they said they were their ideal candidate would be someone who had some proficiency in the French language. Okay, so the third paragraph, I talk about, so the Royal Canadian Mint, it's what's called a Crown Corporation in Canada, so it's owned by the Canadian government, and so it was a unionized workforce, so I talked about my previous experience in the federal public service and with unionization, and then finally I talk about, I relate to what it is they're looking for and show that I've gone to their website and done a bit of research, so I know what their priorities are going forward. So so that particular application did result in an interview. They did not give me an offer. They decided to hire an internal candidate instead, which often happens, but I did get an interview, so the resume and cover letter served their purpose. So here's another cover letter format, which, so this format that I'm showing here, basically I've listed on the left their requirements from their job ad, and on the right, my qualifications. But I don't just repeat. So for example, when they say strong communication skills, I don't just say I have strong communication skills. I say I taught oral and written communication skills. I was a public outreach speaker, and at that point in time, I had 15 publications and 34 conference presentations. So I demonstrate with what I list in my qualifications that I meet what they're saying here. This particular format works very well for job ads where there's a limited number of requirements that they give in the job ad, whereas the previous format, with just a paragraph format, works well because some organizations they'll list many different things they're working for. It doesn't lend itself well to a brief one-page table like this. So, but even note here at the bottom, even though most of this is the table, I still mention my personal connection and knowledge to the organization that is hiring. So hopefully, if you've done your networking and you've submitted an application, then you get an interview. So the purpose of the interview is to get a job offer. So there's various different formats of interviews. If they don't tell you, then ask them so that you can prepare. So a lot of people are really nervous about an interview because you think I have to get the job, but you've made it to either the top or the top 3 candidates, and you really need to think of it as a first date for both of you. You need to be interviewing them to assess, so that you are assessing, is this the right opportunity for you? Just like they are assessing, are you the right candidate for our opportunity? Okay, so it is not good for your career if you accept a job offer and at an organization that is not good, or for a position for which you are not well suited. Okay, so you also need to interview them. Okay, so now they will ask you questions. Okay, and there's many different formats of questions. There's many different difficult or unusual questions that sometimes you can get asked, but all of those questions fit into one of three categories. Can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will you fit in with the organization and the team, the existing team that they have? So how you answer those is you think, you answer, and you bridge. So let me give you an example. I had a job interview when I was interviewing for chief chemist at Vale. So that was for a new mine in northeastern Canada. And they asked me, do I change the oil on my car myself? Okay, so that's not really related to how well I would do as chief chemist for their new mine. Okay, so I thought, what is it that they're really asking here? Okay, so it's, can you do the job? Will you do the job? Will I fit? Which one do I think this is? So then I thought, okay, this relates to can I do the job? So then I said, no, I don't change the oil on my car myself, because that's because I commute year-round by bicycle. Now, where I was living at the time was the city of Edmonton, which is in northern Alberta, and I said that I commute. So I commute year-round by bicycle, and including days when it was minus 57 Celsius wind chill. Okay. So, but I said, but if you want to know about how so no, I'm not good with my car, but let me talk to you about my skills troubleshooting and repairing instrumentation. And so then I talked to them a bit about my troubleshooting and skills. And I was told, after I had got the job, that answer very favorably impressed them, both with that I was able to pivot to talk about what I considered to be some of my strengths in terms of instrumentation, as well as the fact that just that I bicycled year round, even in minus 57 degrees, because the mine where I was going to, it was in the Arctic. And so they knew I would be able to handle the cold. Okay, so however strange the question is, it's can you do the job? Will you do the job? Will you fit? So think, answer, bridge. And if you can't come up with an answer, you can take a few seconds to think. If you can't think of an answer, you can ask to come back to the question. Okay. Now, as I said, you need to be interviewing them also. So prepare your questions for them. Take notes during the interview. Okay, I've read various CEOs and other hiring managers say that that they look on it very favorably if a candidate asks them questions. So have your questions. Even so, your questions may be all answered as you go through the interview before you can answer any questions, but at least take notes. And so they can see that you are also considering your fit for the organization and the role. Okay, so at the end of the interview, look for an opportunity to conclude why you are the solution that they need. Get the interviewer's contact information if you don't already have it. Ask for their next steps and the timeline and when you can follow up, and thank them, and then send a follow-up thank you. So hopefully an interview would result in an offer. So when they start talking to you about an offer, try to never be the first to talk about salary. Okay. Some organizations require you to list your salary expectations during the application process, and So there's no, if you are going to apply there, you have to put in a dollar figure, but try to never be the first to talk about salary. So the answer that I have most commonly used during interviews when I've asked about my salary expectations is I would say that it's in neither your interest nor mine that that I be paid a salary less than a competitive salary. Okay, so sometimes that works. Sometimes they press me more. So if they press you more, or if you have to give a salary as part of the job application, then this is where your research and your networking help you. So it's important to know your worth, what the job and the company and competitors pay or should pay or will pay. And you also need to know what is the minimum that you would accept. So let me just give an example. So when I was interviewing for that job at the mine in the Arctic in Canada, okay, I knew through my networking with other people that worked in that company that when that company makes you a job offer, they will not negotiate on salary. Okay, so that was very helpful for me. So let me tell you a story from one of my fellow career consultants shared a few years ago. So they had one of their clients had a job interview on a Friday, and so they were a PhD chemist, and they were offered a starting salary of $40,000. So they had until early the next week to accept the job offer. So over the weekend, they went to the ACS salary calculator. Now that only works, they only have figures there for different regions in the United States, but they went on there, and they then on Monday went back to them and said, well, I'm interested in the position, but I did some research and found that the average salary for a chemist in this part of the United States is $70,000. And the company immediately came back and said, okay, we will give you $70,000. So from $40,000 to $70,000. Now, you're not in the United States. I'm not in the United States. But on my most recent, when I started my new job just over a year ago, I was made an initial offer, and I went back to them and I said, well, based on other positions that I've seen advertised at Glencore, so those positions paid this much more than you're offering me. And I said that in the United States, the typical, an average salary for a PhD chemist with the number of years of experience I have is, X amount of dollars. And so they did come back with a higher offer than they initially offered me. So there are resources out there, and hopefully with your network you can get some idea. Okay. Now, money is not everything. It's important, but you need to also consider the benefits, intangibles, and the total package. Okay, because you can frequently negotiate non-monetary items. So on my most recent job for my current company, I negotiated extra vacation, and I negotiated support for professional development and involvement so that I can do things like take time, an hour from my workday here to be with you on this webinar. Okay, so, and then finally, you need to ask what the expectations are for onboarding and the timeline, and what support there will be when you're hired to help you succeed in transitioning into your new role. Okay, and you also will probably want to know about opportunities and timelines for raises, promotions, how promotions and recognition work in their organization. So career management, and now you can tell me if things are different in India, but certainly in North America and I think Europe also, lifetime jobs are disappearing. There's more shorter term jobs with greater mobility, which requires active, purposeful, and ongoing management by you. Nobody is going to do it for you. So you need to manage your network and your online presence. So professional societies and activities are important for networking and finding opportunities. And they're also important for professional development, continuous learning and improvement. So in going back to that Forbes list of 12 most important skills, learnability was their most important skill. Because things are changing, the technology is changing. Even if you're in the same job, the technology is not going to stay the same. You need to be able to keep learning. So you can't just stay static. So you have to have a lifelong commitment to professional development. And certainly so professional societies, American Chemical Society can help you with that. It's helped me with that. Okay. So, and then you need to keep your resume and your achievements updated. So what I do is I have a list of achievements, which I then put into my curriculum vitae. And then if I was applying for an industrial position, I then just simply cut and paste from the CV to quickly create a customized resume for a particular job. Okay. Because things happen. So I had 9 wonderful years with Vale, and then they laid me off. So all of a sudden, I needed a new job, and so I was very quickly able to create customized resumes because I had kept everything up to date. Okay, and so as you may know, American Chemical Society, it's the largest scientific society, professional society in the world. And because of that and the resources that they have, they really do have what I think are unparalleled resources to help you with your career management. So I'm just going to quickly go over a couple of those. So there's the URL for the careers website. So first of all, it's if you're not sure what to do with your career, they have. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with a chemistry degree. You do not just have to work at a bench position in, say, a pharmaceutical company, for example. So they have all sorts of opportunities for you to learn what sorts of things chemists can do in different job sectors and areas. So whether it's academia, industry, government, or nonprofit. So the Career Navigator helps you to assess individual skills and help you come up with roadmaps to help you at every step of your career path from a student throughout. And in particular, of particular value that I would you might want to consider is the Chem IDP, Individual Development Plan. So it's designed specifically for grad students and postdocs in the chemical sciences, and it's immersive self-paced activities. Users identify career goals, determine specific skills needed for success, and develop a plan to achieve their professional goals, and helps you then to track your progress. So again, it's not so much that you have all the skills, it's that you know where to go to get the skills. And so ACS really does have a comprehensive suite of tools and resources that can help you at all stages of your career. So I would recommend these to you. So I guess the other thing I should just mention is that I'll just go back here for a second. ACS does have a number of career consultants like myself who are available for one-on-one support and mentoring. And so you can request our services through the ACS Careers website. So remember that when you're searching for jobs, it's quality, not quantity. Rather than sending out 100 generic resumes, you only need one that will work. right? And so it's those quality resumes that are targeted that are going to make it to the top of the pile for consideration. So when you're so take the time to invest in making targeted resumes that will be effective and will get their attention, rather than generic resumes where it's less obvious that you should be a preferred candidate. So research and prepare and show your knowledge of employer at each stage, when you're emailing, during your cover letter, anytime you're contacting or dealing with people, because that is also going to help you to stand out. So any documents that you send, the layout, the format should be attractive and quick and easy to scan. Actually, I should just mention that when you send documents, try to send PDFs and rather than Word or other documents, because it can sometimes happen if you send a Word document, for example, that if they're using a different version, then the format may change. Okay, but if you send a PDF, it will always stay the same format. Make sure that there are no errors, either technical errors or factual errors, spelling or grammar. Okay, and don't do it alone. So get help, network. So if you're applying, if your first language is not English and you're applying for a position in English, if you know someone whose first language is English, get them to just review it. Okay, so or get someone else to help you, because other people will catch errors that you won't see. So finally, so believe in yourself. Okay, you have unique strengths and abilities that nobody else has, right? Your unique value proposition. I shared what mine was in my branding at the top of my resume. So find out what yours are, and find out what sorts of jobs and opportunities then are the ones where you are going to be most suitable for, and therefore most successful at and happiest at. And then in your documents then, market and sell yourself, present yourself as the best, most relevant to you, to what the organization is looking for. So a few thoughts to conclude is that life is too short to spend 90,000 hours doing something or being somewhere that you don't like. Now, sometimes we have to compromise, right? We have a long-term goal and we have to take steps towards it. But think about what it is. So for me, after working in academia and government, I thought, what is it that I really want to do? I really wanted to work in industry, and I had a geology degree and I liked geology-related things. So I thought I would really like to work in the mining industry. So that was my goal. Okay, it took a lot of time and effort for me to get there, but I did eventually do it. Okay, so you may have to take a job that is not quite right, or that maybe is not your preferred job, but if it's a stepping stone to getting to your objective, then that can be valid as well. Okay, but set your sight to find something that is a good match for you, because then you'll be happy and most likely to be successful. So you need to actively manage your career. Okay, and chance favors the prepared. Okay, so you can take courses. You can take courses, and you can volunteer. You can be very good. But the thing is, you can't manufacture. Usually, can't manufacture an opportunity. All you can do is be prepared for when you either discover opportunities through your networking, or your own research, or an opportunity somehow otherwise presents itself. So back about 10 years ago, I was at an ACS meeting in the States, and one of my fellow career consultants, who was a professor, said to me, I have students coming to me and asking about should they should they major in chemistry, and what should I advise them? Because right now, at that time in the United States, the pharmaceutical industry was laying off tens of thousands of chemists in the United States. And my advice, what I said to him, and what I tell people was, if you do what you love and are passionate about, there will always be jobs for people like that. Because if you love what you do, you're going to put in 100% at your job. You're going to be more likely to be successful. You're going to be people want to be around people who love what they do and are happy and are passionate about what they do. Okay, so you're more likely to be successful. So what I would say is to follow your dream. Right, find what it is that you love and are passionate about, and that is suitable for you. Okay, and just to conclude, a few pictures. So I mentioned the mine in Arctic Canada. So that's me on the left with some of my team members. So this is the Voisey Bay mine. So here's another picture from near the Voisey Bay mine. So that is a muskox in the background. There were polar bears there, but fortunately I never saw one because polar bears will eat people. And my work has taken me to Brazil, to England. I've had wonderful opportunities just following my dream. So follow your dream, do what you love and are passionate about. And unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of when I vacationed in India, but India is a fabulous country, and I hope to be able to go back there sometime. So thank you very much, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Kurt. So Aditi will read up the questions we had for the registration for this webinar. In the registration forms, we had asked the participants if they have any questions. So we have made a list of those questions. Aditi will read the questions now. Over to you, Aditi.
Yeah, thank you, Yash. Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Kurt. So we have got few questions. I'll just read them for you. So the first question is, what are the career opportunities in Canada for pharmaceutical research?
Well, so pharmaceutical research. What's interesting is that with the start of the pandemic, I guess the economy was in turmoil, and so a lot of people were thinking that it would be a very difficult time that opportunities would be limited. But of course, what has happened is that, of course, there's been a tremendous, the development of RNA vaccines, of course, was an unprecedented and fabulous achievement. But it's not just, of course, RNA vaccines. Of course, there's all the other vaccines. And then now we're seeing therapies, small molecules to treat COVID. So as well as a recognition that there needed to be more domestic capability in terms of vaccines and therapeutics. And so with supply chain disruptions, for example. And so in both Canada, I would say Canada, the United States, as well as Europe, there are more opportunities. There have been probably in a generation. It's a good time to be looking for jobs. And that's not just in pharmaceutical, but in pharmaceutical. So even in Toronto, so I'm about 400 kilometers north of Toronto, but there's all sorts of pharmaceutical companies starting up that I are not big names. So there are a lot of opportunities, especially in pharmaceutical. And I'm guessing India may be the same, but certainly, as I said, North America and Europe, there are opportunities.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So the second question is, as we all know that internships are very important for undergraduate students, but due to this pandemic, our colleges were online and we didn't really get any practical experience or internships. So what else can we do apart from internships to get knowledge or experience?
Well, you can volunteer, right? Exactly what you're doing now. Okay, it's not so. Yeah, internships are great, but I mean, now we need to differentiate between, so internships may be paid or unpaid. And I mean, if you have, an internship is helpful. There's no question about it. It's not essential. Okay. So if you're able to get an internship, obviously you would like a paid internship. Okay. If you are able to support yourself with an unpaid internship, personally, I don't think internships should ever be unpaid. Just to give you an idea, so I'm expecting to hire 4 summer students this year, and so those students are paid something like $32 an hour. I couldn't believe how much they're paid. I'm like, that's more than some of the chemists at other companies I was making. If you can't, because many people, if you can't get a paid internship, the reality is many people are not able to afford an unpaid internship. So, but again, like I said, what you can do is you can volunteer, and you can do all those other things that I've been talking about to demonstrate how you are, what your unique value proposition is to an organization that you are applying to. Okay, I've mentioned it a little bit, but and every hiring manager is different. But for me, the most important thing I'm looking for when I interview someone is, what is their motivation? Okay, so you remember those 3 interview questions: can you do the job? Will you do the job? How will you fit? Okay, so it doesn't matter how technically accomplished you are, if you are not passionate about what you would be doing, and if you don't identify with the organization and the work that you will be doing as part of my group, then you're not going to perform, right? So a key thing I look for when I interview people is, what is their motivation? I'm looking for someone who is going to enjoy working for my company as part of my group, and who feels that they will be making a difference. That's because I can train for the technical stuff, right? Really.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So the last question is, even if we are well prepared for the interview, there are situations when we find the interviewer very strict and we tend to get nervous and make mistakes. How to be confident, and how should we tackle such situations?
So, and I've had instances like that. I've had interviewers who were very obviously quite hostile. I had one where I found out later on that, so this person asked me a question, I started answering, and then they interrupted and put a negative spin on what I said, and then immediately wouldn't let me finish answering, went on to the next question. They were adversarial and hostile the whole time. And so I found out much later that person, I don't know why, before I even showed up there, they decided that I was not the person for the job. Okay, so the reality is there's nothing you can do about that. Okay, so but what you can do is you can prepare your questions for them, and prepare how to handle difficult questions. Salary expectations is a difficult question. Okay, so I mentioned how I answer that. It's to everyone's interest I be paid a competitive wage. So the one time they pressed me, they wanted me to name a figure, and so I said, well, I expect for a position such as this, I expect the salary would be about, and I named a figure. Okay. And they wound up offering me the job at the figure that I mentioned. Okay, so or you'd be able to say, as I did when I was offered my job here, well, based on the research that I've done, I would expect this would be the salary range. Okay. The other thing is that, as I said, that you need to interview them. It's like a first date. So that if they are interviewing you, you are one of the top candidates. And yes, you want them to make an offer, but as I said, you don't want the job at any price. It has to be the right opportunity for you, just like it has to be the right opportunity for them. Okay, so and if you come across like you are interviewing them just like they are interviewing you, that puts you also have some power here and some agency. Okay, so if you come at it thinking that, then that should help you to be less nervous. So yes, of course you want the interview. Okay, so so do your preparation, have the right attitude, that they're talking to you because they think you might be able to help them and you have something to offer that they need. Okay, and then for any of those weird, difficult questions, can you do the job? Will you do the job? How will you fit? So think, answer, and then bridge from whatever weird question they're answering to what your qualifications and your strengths are and how they meet their needs.
Yeah, thank you so much once again. So we have got 2 questions in the chat box. This is by Tanaya. Which exams do we have to give to practice as an authorized pharmacist in Canada and USA?
Oh, gee, I couldn't tell you that. You'd have to network with someone. Well, so I will tell you that in terms of just pharmacy, somehow I don't even remember who this person is, but I'm seeing job ads on LinkedIn for pharmacy assistants, lots of them here. But I mean, I'm not a pharmacist. And I don't know what the qualifications are. You would need to reach out to either look at those job ads or reach out to connect to someone there. And of course, LinkedIn is a great tool for connecting with those sorts of people and organizations.
Yeah. So the next question is by Yash. Can you explain the roles and jobs open to pharmacist students in extraction field, for example, extraction of API materials at Canada?
Well, I assume there are some companies that will do it. So at my last job, for example, we did some work quantifying impurities in a novel synthesis route for paclitaxel, for example. Now, they had come up with a novel synthesis route. Of course, some pharmaceuticals are done through extractions. I guess the big, I'm not in the pharmaceutical industry, so I'm not the best person to advise on that. But what I do see a lot of job ads for in Canada and increasingly in the United States are for jobs related to extraction in the cannabis industry, which is growing and hiring a lot of people in Canada and the United States. So it's certainly related to pharmacy. But there are jobs there. And again, it's just thinking about that. So I have one of my LinkedIn contacts. It's actually I count him as a friend as well. Is just CEO of a new startup that's looking at extraction of as well as synthesis of psychotics. Psychoactive drugs, so drugs that are currently banned in many jurisdictions, but that's a new field that's opening up as they've shown potential to treat some psychiatric disorders that traditional pharmaceuticals do not treat well. So so that's a new emerging field. And who knows where the next emerging field is going to come from, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I hope, Yash, this has cleared your doubt. So we have next question by Anushka. Can you tell about the scholarships available and college criteria for higher studies in pharmacy in Canada?
So a question I often get asked is about studying to Canada or relocating to Canada. And what I can say, I mean, obviously I'm Canadian. I've been here all my life. So I've looked into immigrating to Australia and the United States before, but I'm less familiar about Canada. But what I can say is that a number of years ago, I tried to recruit what I consider to be a uniquely talented scientist to my group. This person lived in the United Kingdom, and so I learned a little bit about immigration to Canada, and that the Canadian government actually makes it very difficult for people to immigrate into Canada. So in this particular case, we had to conduct what the government calls a labor market evaluation. And basically, we had to demonstrate that there were no qualified Canadians who could do this job, so that this person was uniquely qualified. Okay. So typically, in order to come into Canada on that kind of a qualification, so if you're a professor, if you're a doctor, perhaps a pharmacist. So as I said, I see a lot of job ads for pharmacists and pharmacy assistants, and so if there's a shortage, then it's easy for them to demonstrate that there are no qualified Canadians. So you may well have an advantage there. In circumstances where you can't demonstrate that you are uniquely qualified, a company would basically have to sponsor you. And part of that, now, if a company really wants you, they can they might be able to write a job ad in such a way that it is uniquely tailored to you, so they can demonstrate there are no qualified Canadians. Okay, but there are still significant legal and other obligations that the company has to undertake. So that's challenging. Most of the people that I have hired that have been immigrants to Canada, what they do is they come to Canada on a student visa. And my understanding is that when you come to Canada on a student visa, so whether it's as a graduate student or an undergraduate student, some people come as, even if they have a degree, they will come and take a 2-year program at a community college, for example. And anyway, once you've completed your course of studies, my understanding is that you're able to work. You have authorization to work for a year. And so what they do is they then get a job. And then once they're employed here, then they can apply for permanent resident status. So I'm not an expert, but this is just, the people that I've interacted with. So actually, my most recent hire here is from India. And that's what she did. She came as a student, did a 2-year program at the local college. She then got hired on contract with the other. So there's 2 major nickel miners in Sudbury. So the other major nickel miner, Vale, she was on contract there, and then when I had an opening, she applied, and well, out of 111, she was the best. So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Kurt, for answering all the questions nicely. The session is now open to the audience. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask. I can see Yash has raised his hand. Yash.
Hi. My name is Yash, and I had few questions as a follow-up question. As you clearly mentioned, there is a ongoing rise and demand of psychoactive drugs in Canada, and there's a new trend called CBD and THC as a 2 products extracted from cannabinoids. So would you advise that as an extraction specialist or an analytical specialist, there is opening in Canada for an Indian pharmacist?
I would guess so, provided that they can provided that they can demonstrate that they're having trouble hiring enough qualified Canadians. So if you have some specialization there, then perhaps. Again, as I said, I know there are I know there are opportunities. I've been contacted by recruiters, and I see them posted all the time. So, but you would have to follow up on the specifics of each individual potential opportunity. Certainly, there should be on LinkedIn. You should be able to connect with some of those companies. If you want to message me on LinkedIn, I could forward you. I'm trying to think. I have one or two contacts in the cannabis industry. The one that's coming immediately to mind is in the United States, but certainly, there are job ads that I see that I could forward, and that or you could search for those yourselves.
Yes, sir. Actually, the country is not at my priority. I mean, the job is fine. I'm interested with psychoactive drugs currently. And actually, the problem what I faced in LinkedIn is that, as you might know, that on LinkedIn, the profiles are not clearly visible or linked with cannabinoids. Like if you go to search and for extraction plants, I mean, for extraction job opportunities, there are wide array of opportunities that are not linked to such psychoactive drugs. So, I mean, I was kind of finding difficult. And first of all, I was more inclined towards getting a degree in the related field and getting an exposure for extraction and analysis of such products, because they are obviously used in therapeutic purposes currently, and for recreational purposes they are limited. So I was confused, like which companies and which education institutes offer such. So I was facing such problems. That is the sole purpose why I asked you this question, sir.
Yeah. I would suggest you follow up with me on LinkedIn because I do have, like I said, I have a friend of mine is CEO of a startup, so they're not at the stage yet where they would be hiring chemists, but in the information I have that he's forwarded me on his company, there's links in there to some of the companies that are active in that field, and I could pass that information on to you. That hopefully that would help you to identify people and opportunities.
That will be really kind of you, sir. Thank you so much. I'll be gladly messaging for the information required. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yash. Now I invite Harshita Patel, she is the secretary of our chapter, to kindly deliver the formal vote of thanks.
It's done.
Yeah. Thank you, Snehadeep. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Dr. Kurt.
Thank you so much. Best wishes, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kurt, for joining.
We all had a great time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. Pleasure meeting you.
See you. Likewise.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Thanks.